what's up you guys, the Curious Owl here, and today I am going to be finally doing my last review for the Harry Potter series for Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows by J.K. Rowling. You guys really have no idea how excited I am to be finally done with this series and to finally say I finished it, because there has been such a long gap between the first time I read this book and now, and I'm so glad that now I've picked it up and have finally finished it and finally completed one of my most favorite series of all time. In this final installment of the Harry Potter series, Harry, Ron, and Hermione all decide to take up what Dumbledore had started before his untimely death in the Half-Blood Prince, which was to find and destroy all of Voldemort's Horcruxes to bring him down to be able to be destroyed. They decide to leave their final year at Hogwarts and their Newt's exams in favor of adventuring and basically hiding from all of Voldemort's supporters and followers, while also dealing with their own problems within themselves and with each other. With Dumbledore now gone, everything is up to these three, and they have to finally bring down Voldemort's reign and save essentially the entire world, both the wizarding and the mortal world. As many of you may know, if you've been following me for quite some time now, or at least since about September, you'll know that I basically decided to do a full reread of the Harry Potter series because I had not actually been in that world since I was about 10, not including having seen the movies. And for some reason, I was never able to finish Deathly Hallows when I was about 12, because for some reason I think that my 12-year-old brain at the time didn't quite understand what was going on in the novel, and I don't exactly remember why that was, like if there was anything specific about it, but because I was going to do a reread of this series, I made it my mission to be also able to complete the Deathly Hallows now that I am 20 years old and that I have much more experience with reading and with comprehension and things of that nature. So I want to tell you guys now that this final installment in the series has taken my #1 spot for my favorite book in this Harry Potter series, and it used to be Prisoner of Azkaban. I did not think that anything could have beat Prisoner of Azkaban because it was my favorite movie. I remember loving the book so much when I was a kid, and then I loved it again reading it the second time, and I don't know what it was, but this book just blew Prisoner of Azkaban out of the water, and it's going to forever be within my heart as like the best conclusion to a series by far. I think that that's kind of why a lot of people actually love this book so much in particular, and why it's a lot of people's favorites, is because it's such a satisfying conclusion to the entire storyline and really a good way to wrap things up and kind of tie up those loose ends that a lot of people were asking questions about. It talks about, you know, fighting for what's good and what's right and just in the world, and also for not giving up when things get really, really tough and you're faced with a lot of adversity. Because in this book specifically, Harry, Ron, and Hermione all come across such various problems and adversities that they have to deal with, and sometimes it's for the better, sometimes it's not, and they kind of have to find out what is going to be best for them in order to get to the goal that they intend to get to. So I think that one of the best things about this book in particular is just the overall progression of the series and how that is so nicely wrapped up with the Deathly Hallows, because Rowling's writing and her style in writing has really progressed so well. Rowling's writing was actually really good, I thought, in the first book, but the more books that she came out in this series, the better her writing started to get in terms of building the world and building the lore that is within the wizarding world and how it relates to the muggle world. And I think that's what a lot of people love so much about this entire series, is the fact that there's so much that goes into this story that you learn as you progress with Harry, Ron, and Hermione throughout their time at Hogwarts. If you guys watched my reading vlog from last week, I went to a panel for Harry Potter that talked a lot about kind of why this series in general has been able to become so worldwide and so popular across the world. And it's really interesting to see that there are so many different countries that absolutely fell in love with this series, because as a kid I always thought that it was just a UK and American thing that people enjoyed, but I never realized as a kid, you know, how many other countries really understood the messages and the themes that were involved in this story. And I think one of the main reasons that people around the world have loved this book is because of the characters themselves and the growth of those characters throughout the story, because we see Harry go from being a very shy and timid individual to going off and destroying Horcruxes left and right with his best friends, and we see each individual character grow themselves within this story. We see a lot of growth from Snape, and with Dumbledore and Ron and Hermione and Hagrid, and all of these individual voices that were so unique and were so well developed throughout each novel in the series. I think the overall pacing of the Deathly Hallows was actually really well done, because while there were a lot of low points, there was also still a lot of anxieties because of the fact that we didn't know what was exactly going to happen next, and we didn't know that because the characters didn't know that. And then the really high intensity scenes like the Battle of Hogwarts were so well done and executed, and there also was some really good comic relief involved with it to kind of offset all the gore and the, you know, battle that was actually going on. I think that it was a really great balance because things weren't too quick, they weren't too slow. It kind of had just a very happy medium that really seemed to work throughout the entire story. Now, I really think that Harry specifically as a character has grown so much in just this novel in particular, because he goes from not wanting anyone to help him with these Horcruxes and him having to just do it himself for fear of possibly hurting someone he cares about, to eventually letting people help him, which is such a hard thing to do as a type A person. I definitely feel that Harry is a type A in this scenario with wanting to do things himself, because it's very similar to something I would do, because I would want people to just, you know, do what they need to do and to just go do what they like and not worry about me, because I'm going to do what it is I need to do to get what I need done. And I feel that Harry and I really connect on that struggle of wanting to give up a little bit of power in order to get people to do other things to help us, because it's very much a control thing, and I really understand kind of where Harry comes from with that, because he doesn't want anyone else to get hurt by what he has to do. He doesn't want to put anyone in danger, so he has to have control of the situation, and he has to do it himself. But I really love how by the end of the story, we really see that has changed, and he's really understood that he doesn't have to do things alone, and you don't have to do things alone in order for things to get done. You do have people who are supportive of you and will help you in any possible way they can, regardless of what is going to happen to them. And that is something I have also had to learn throughout my life, is that I don't always have to do things on my own. So that entire connection I have with Harry was so inspiring, because I think it's really helped me with understanding a lot about myself, as well as really just appreciating the personal growth that Harry has throughout this story. Now, despite all of the praise that I could give this novel, there were a couple of things that I didn't particularly like, and it's more so opinion based. So take this with a grain of salt if you are looking to read this book, because my opinion may be completely different than yours when it comes to this. So the first thing is I thought that there were some things that were mentioned in the book that was tying up loose ends only to be essentially convenient. This was something that I think Emma Books really explained well in her review of The Deathly Hallows, and that I highly agreed with when I read it myself. There's some things that just leave things a little too neatly packaged, and I feel that there is kind of more room that could have been dealt with certain things, and I can't really say anything if you haven't read the books, because otherwise it would spoil a lot of the story that is going on in the Deathly Hallows. But just know that there are a lot of things that kind of seem that they're too convenient. So this next part is going to be a little spoilery, so if you haven't read the Deathly Hallows, please go to this timestamp that will jump to the next point that does not have any spoilers involved in it. So my thing is, I do not like the scene with Harry and Dumbledore in King's Cross when Harry has essentially died, because I feel that Dumbledore uses that as an opportunity to apologize for everything that he should have done in the first place. It's kind of one of those things where hindsight is 20/20, where had he known that Harry was going to do so well with defeating Voldemort and getting the Horcruxes and stuff like that, and how he was going to be such a strong individual on his own, Dumbledore would have been able to tell him more as he was younger. But I think that Dumbledore should have known that from the minute that he first saw Harry in the infirmary after having defeated Professor Quirrell and ridding him of Voldemort's soul from the back of his head, and basically finding and protecting the Sorcerer's Stone. I think that that would have been the perfect time for him to at least divulge a little bit of information about Voldemort and why he's after Harry and why he might be coming back and things of that nature, and I think that would have saved us a whole hell of a lot of trouble before we even got to the Goblet of Fire and Voldemort came back. I just feel that Dumbledore could have told him so much more at that point in time, and then maybe have him continue his schooling, but also try to track down those Horcruxes by using the memories that he was looking at in the Pensieve and Half-Blood Prince, and just things would have been so much easier, I think, at that point. But if that was to have happened, we probably wouldn't have had the Harry Potter series as it is now. So that's why I think that that opinion is kind of take with a grain of salt, because that's my opinion. But I know that if it wasn't kind of there, that it would have changed the entire story into something that it definitely is not today. So overall, though, I really enjoyed this book way more than I had ever dreamed I would. I thought I would absolutely like it, but I didn't know that it would end up becoming my #1 Harry Potter book in the world. Like, oh my gosh, I never would have guessed that in my entire life, because I thought nothing could beat Prisoner of Azkaban because it had Sirius and it had Buckbeak and it had Remus, who were some of my favorite characters of all time. So overall, I did end up giving Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows a 5 out of 5 stars. Now, I didn't really include my opinions on it because those are purely my opinion that I think could be swayed by someone who has evidence, or, you know, just basically makes me see things in a different light. So I didn't want to include those opinions within my overall rating of the book because I feel that they're very subjective per person in terms of what they think of it. So I just didn't really feel that it was anything that could have majorly changed my opinion or swayed my opinion of the book itself. So thank you guys all so much for joining me in this review. I hope that, you know, you liked it, and let me know what your guys' thoughts were of Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows, because I've heard so many people say that it is their favorite, but I want to know, why is that, or why is it not your favorite, and what kind of made you like one book in the series over the other? If you guys have any thoughts and opinions on it, please leave them in the comments below for me to read, and I will be sure to reply to them with my own thoughts and opinions based on yours. So thank you guys so much for joining me. If you guys did enjoy this video, please do give it a big thumbs up. And if you're not already and you'd like to be, hit that button down below and subscribe to become an owlet in our flock. And I will see all of you guys in my next video. Bye, guys.